Welcome to the 2015 Subaru Australian Mountain Bike Championships, and we're here in the beautiful northeastern Victorian town of Bright. The weather is perfect, the racing's going to be great. We've got the cross-country eliminator, trials, and those crazy kids in the downhill. Now, I'm happily joined by my co-host, Peter Mullins, one of the superstars of mountain biking in Australia, and also the Australian Women's Elite Road Champion. You do it all, Peter.
I try to mix it up a little bit. This is probably my target race of the season though, so I'm pretty happy to be in Bright.
Now, you are one of the favourites for the cross-country and the cross-country eliminator. Who are the other riders that we should be watching?
I think our highlight athletes obviously in Australia are Dan McConnell and Beck Henderson, current Oceania champions, and they've definitely been pretty unbeatable this season, so I think that they'll be on song for this weekend in the cross-country and the cross-country eliminator. And then I know that Paul Vanderploeg is really racing hard, and he's done a lot of training the lead up to this eliminator championships. He's pretty keen to get that title back.
Well, you did say pretty much unbeatable, but you did get the better of Beck Henderson in Western Australia, so do you think you can do it again here at the championships?
Oh, I think she was having a bit of an off day that day maybe, but I had a pretty dominant victory, so I was pretty happy with the form there. I've had a bit of a rough run into the championships, but I certainly won't go down without a fight.
Now, the one thing that you don't do is the downhill. What about those guys? Who do you think is going to be in the mix there?
Yeah, look, the downhill is probably the most exciting race of the weekend for me. I'm always happy to get our racing over and done with so I can go and watch those crazy cats. And I think this year for me, Troy Brosnan he's really fit. He's been doing some gravity racing leading into this, so I know that so he's got those kilometres behind him. And Tracy Hannah, she is just a class act. I'd like to see Tegan Malloy step up and challenge her, but I think Tracy will take it.
Junior World Champion from last year, so coming up into the elite category now, so Tegan may be one to watch as well. Connor Fearon is another one, and Tracy's brother Mick, he's been around for a long time, 31 years of age now, but he'll be gunning for another title perhaps.
Yeah, I think age means nothing with him. He's as crazy as ever.
Well, we love being in Bright, and so does the Mountain Bike Australia president, Russ Baker. We caught up with him for a chat about the championships.
Yeah, look, Bright's a fantastic venue. We were here last year. It's even better this year. We've moved up to a better open area, lots of grass. We're right next to the pine trees. It's a great environment for the riders, and it's reflected in the numbers. We've got nearly 100 more entrants this year than we had last year.
Now, the downhill course as well. I'm hearing lots of feedback from all of the riders, both the cross-country and downhill courses are actually really world class.
Yeah, they are. Look, Bright got big raps from the downhillers last year. It's very similar this year. There's a few new lines, but it's a good course. One of the hard things in Australia to achieve is a decent vertical drop close to a major city, and Bright does that. It's a really challenging course for the riders. Some pretty fast sections on it, and look, the winner may be the person who can keep their hands off the brakes the longest. The cross-country course, only 100 metres elevation, but it's one of those courses that it's very hard to ride fast. You need technical skill to be able to ride this course fast, and that's what's going to bring out the best in our Olympic hopefuls and our Commonwealth Games medalists.
Well, that's MTBA President Russ Baker. They're very happy about the state of affairs for mountain biking in Australia at the moment, which is a great segue to introduce Mike Blewett, the editor of Australian Mountain Biking magazine. You must be pleased with where MTB is at the moment.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, I've been in the sport for a long time myself, and just seeing it grow and actually have a bit more of a presence in the media and also just a greater uptake.
The numbers are really up this year at the championships. What do you think the reason is for that?
Could be many reasons. I look back to just 12 months ago, and I think we've got 40% greater competitors here at the national championships. So whether it's that MTBA are doing the right things with promotion or making some great partnerships within the sport, or maybe it's just down to the people who are involved too.
Perhaps it's the great magazines that are out there.
I'd like to think so. Our next issue is the race issue. We'll be looking back at all the great racing over summer, so that's out on the 6th of April. But it could just be having two of the best races in the world with Beck Henderson and Dan McConnell being Australian.
The Beck and Dan effect, perhaps it really is flowing through all of the categories. Now, up next is the elite women's and under-23 cross-country event. Beck Henderson herself, the big favourite for that, but who else do you think is going to be in the mix?
Well, you can never discount Peter Mullins. She's one of the best racers on road, clearly winning the national championships this year, and off-road too. So I see Beck and Peter they're going to be out in the front racing for the title. It's hard to bet against Beck though. I mean, she took the title last year, and Peter's been up there with her and beat her once in the national series this year. So I guess it's going to come down to those two.
Perhaps there's the Jenny effect as well, the two Jennies in Faye and King. They may be in the mix for the medals also. But look, one of the big stars obviously for the women's race is Beck Henderson, and she finished off the couple of weeks ago, the Oceania Championships, picking up the gold medal there once again, and it was off the back of her first year in the elite category where she rounded out the World Cup in 10th position. So let's hear a little bit more about Beck Henderson.
2014 was, a really good year and interesting year for me, racing up in elites out of under 23 category. I managed to already tick some pretty good goals of mine to get a top 10 and stay in the top 15, which was really cool. Racing elite comes with its challenges and you're up against the very best in the world. For me to get a 10th and a couple of 15ths is, it was quite a surprise to me. I was hoping for top 20, so, I was pleased to achieve those goals and, really hungry to improve from there. Racing as part of the Trek Factory racing team it's a privilege, and it still blows my mind every time I'm with the team, just the positive vibes and the way they help out with absolutely everything is unbelievable, and it's more than I could have ever dreamed of. I'm really excited for the National Championships. I've heard various things about the course, if there's less climbing or more climbing, but, we'll just have to wait and see. And, I think that's the beauty about mountain biking. Whoever's the best on the day is the best no matter what the course. So, it's always going to be a hard race, and especially one where the pressure's on and there's something to lose or something to gain.
Beck, you are the outright favourite to take the title. How are you feeling? How confident are you?
Yeah, I guess there's a bit of pressure on me as defending champion, and also a few good results in the last couple of races. So I'm keen to get out there, and hopefully it'll all pan out well.
Now, there's been a big battle throughout the whole national series between you and Beck Henderson. Who's going to come out on top in this time?
Oh, I think it's going to be a tough one. Look, she's had some really good form. I've been sick the last 2 weeks, but I'm ready to give it all I've got. Jenny King's also been creeping up on us, and she got one over us a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's going to be a bit of a three-way, and it could go either way.
Well, they certainly have shared the wins this season, but Beck Henderson is definitely the favourite to take out the gold medal today. Let's see how we go. This is the course map. They'll be doing 5 laps of a 5.1 kilometre circuit. It's only 101 metres elevation per lap, but 2 difficult climbs, and they seem to be on the pressure the whole time. The only respite they get is 2 sections of fire trail, which will actually be raced pretty hard before they get to the single track. And the elite women are off. The under-23s are in there as well. I'm joined here in commentary by Stu Plant and Mike Blewett, the editor of Australian Mountain Bike magazine. Mike, to you first. You know this course. What do you think of it, and who does it really suit?
Well, it's a lot flatter than last year, and I think that's kind of where Beck got the gap on Peter, but every single climb comes just about always on single track, so you really got to be on it. And climbing on single track is far harder than climbing on fire road. It's a lot of strength and speed required.
Well, Stu, you've watched them throughout the National Series this year. Who do you think it suits?
Well, look, as we see them finishing the start loop there, I don't really think the course matters too much amongst these riders. I think Beck is always going to be the slight favourite from Peter.
Is Beck Henderson leading them out onto the 5 kilometre course now. Peter Mullins glued straight to the wheel. Very similar outfits, but they are different bikes, different sponsors. And this is what we've seen throughout the National Series. These two, number 1 and number 2, both former winners of the Australian Championships. And this is the more technical part of the course. You can see the small gears as they're starting to climb. Peter doing her best, though, to keep in touch there with Beck Henderson.
Yeah, look, this is the pattern we expected to see. We expect to see Beck lead them off. We expect to see Peter stay in touch. The question is, can that pattern change? The only time we've seen Peter breach that gap is we see Jenny King just 10 or so bike lengths further back. The only time we've seen Peter really be able to make a challenge was the day when Beck had to back up after a race in Pemberton.
That's right, and Peter really put a big gap into Beck that day, and that speaks of her experience. She's a very well-rounded rider. Beck obviously focuses purely on cross country, whereas Peter, we see her on the road, we see her on stage races. She gets out on the track as well, and she was able to back up that day in Pemberton for the 3rd round.
Well, Jenny King now consolidating 3rd position. Peter Mullins did mention that she was the other one to watch from behind.
And here come M. Parks and Jodie Willett. M. Parks will actually be in the under-23 category, which she's leading, and there's Karen Hill coming through too.
Well, Holly Harris is the other rider to watch in the under-23s, both 20 years of age, but these are the 2 experienced riders out in front. It's actually the first year, well, 2014 was the first year Beck Henderson competed internationally in the elite category, finished the World Cup in 10th position. And starting 2015, on the right foot, here's our 2 leaders locked together. Peter Mullins not giving any assistance to Beck Henderson out in front, trying to get some sort of draft from her, try and save some energy as they go out onto the 2nd of our 5 kilometre loops.
Look, in that first year, we saw Beck in the UCI World Cup round in Cairns at home with a top 10 race finish. Absolutely outstanding. Beck that day gave absolutely everything and really delivered in Cairns.
She certainly did, and I think that this first year will have been a great learning curve for her. But looking at these top 3 riders coming through now, they all have vast amounts of experience, and they're looking composed and at ease with how they're racing.
And Jenny King came through 35 seconds behind the 2 leaders. Here is Emily Parks now, the leader in the under-23 category. They race 1 lap less than the elite women, but she's certainly mixing it up with them, that's for sure. So another couple of years for both her and Holly Harris in the 23s before they step up into the elites.
And look, her and Holly have been racing each other throughout the junior years, and it's almost unusual to see a gap this big at the start of a race. Those 2 girls often race wheel for wheel.
Now these 2 here, they look so similar with the blues on there, but you notice they're on quite different bikes. We've got Beck ahead on her Track Superfly, which is a 29-inch wheel dual suspension bike, but Peter's built up a 650B Yeti hardtail, so slightly smaller wheels and obviously no rear suspension.
You'll notice with most of, if not all of the other elite women do have the dual suspensions, Mike, and Peter really just rolling the dice there with the hardtail, thinking she did say before the race that if she's on a good day, the hardtail's great. If it's a bad day, it's terrible, but she just wants to be on a good day, so it's all for the win.
That's right, it's those 1% differences, I guess, but you're certainly right. A lot of people switching to a dual suspension bike just to allow a bit more efficiency and to stay fresher through the length of the race.
A little bit of a group now. 4th, 5th, 6th place, I think, out there on course. But now Beck Henderson been able to open up a bit of a lead now over Peter Mullins as they come back into the finishing complex.
And look, this is really the same race pattern that we saw at the Oceanias in Toowoomba just 2 weeks ago. We saw the 2 girls stay together early, and then Beck just starts to wind it up. Question is, can Peter respond?
Now, is it really on the climbs where that's happening, or is it part of the technical nature of the circuit where Peter, who came across to mountain biking late, is a little bit down on technique compared to Beck?
Look, I want to say from the vision that we just saw on the last lap, it seemed like Beck descended a little bit cleaner than Peter did, and that'll be interesting to watch throughout the race.
Yeah, there's certainly marginal differences. Peter is a great bike handler. I mean, she won the first round of the Gravity Enduro Series at Mount Buller at the start of the year, barely weeks after winning the road title. I think it speaks to versatility, but Beck's really had to make sure for the World Cup cross-country racing that her handling is just on point.
Well, they're out now on the 3rd lap of 5. And it was 12 seconds was the gap that Beck Henderson had over Peter Mullins. Gone out over a minute now, back to Jenny King from the race leader. Jenny Fay was in 4th position as they came through. And this is Emily Parks, still leading the under-23 category with a fairly sizable gap over Holly Harris.
And Em's actually riding in 4th position overall there. She isn't in the elite race. She's got her own ranking with under-23. Here's Holly Harris chasing that category too.
And look, we can see Beck climbing now. And you talk about the European experience of Beck, the world experience. These climbs here, really not going to challenge her a lot.
But I guess that's the difference with being a professional is being able to perform at your best on whatever the course is. And so long climb or short climb, Beck's going to be at ease performing on it.
Look, we saw that too when we went to, as we see the descending here of Beck and nice and clean there. We saw that last year when we went to Moama. The National Series went to a very, very flat course, didn't affect Beck. She was still able to power away with the win.
Well, this is interesting there. We saw the under-23 riders come through. Holly Harris has caught up with Emily Park now, so that's looking very interesting in the 23s. Meanwhile, out in front of the elite category, wearing number 1, and once again, way out in front, it is Beck Henderson.
And look, no surprises there that Holly's caught up to Em. We've seen those 2 ride wheel for wheel so often, any discipline, any race.
Earlier, we were talking about the difference in the bikes that Peter Mullins and Beck Henderson are riding. So let's learn a little bit more now about the Trek Beck is riding.
Hi, my name's Gary Wolf. I'm the team mechanic for Trek Factory Racing. I'm here with Beck Henderson and Dan McConnell. And in the stand, I got Beck Henderson's bike. She is using the new Di2. This was introduced last year. This is basically electronic shifting. It's also integrated with the suspension system from Fox. So we have electronic shifting and electronic lockout. With Beck and Dan, they're running synchro shift, which means we only have a right shift lever, and that operates the front and rear derailleur for you. It's all automated, so all you have to do is just keep shifting and it'll keep finding the gear that you need. One of the big advantages with the Di2 shifting is it gets rid of all the cables and housing, and that also in turn gets rid of cable contamination, and then it's a lot lower maintenance once we get it on. I have to say I prefer it a lot more than cables and housing. Makes my job much easier.
Welcome back to the beautiful town of Bright in northeastern Victoria for the Subaru Australian Mountain Bike Championships. We're in the cross-country event. The paragliders are getting the best view of the course here, and the under-23s are coming into the finish. Two riders out in front of that category locked together.
Look, for the last couple of laps, it's been all about Holly and Em wheel for wheel, Mike.
Yeah, and look, we can see that Holly Harris has bridged all the way up to M Parks' back wheel, and with 30 seconds that she had to make up, that's really impressive. But they're about to come down the finish straight here, and it's going to be a sprint for the win.
And around the final corner, these two girls know each other back to front. They're into the final straight. M Parks has the lead, but Holly has the power. Can she track her down around the outside, or can M hold across the line? M Parks just holds it, and she is the national champion for the under-23 women here at the Subaru National Championships in Bright, Victoria.
With such a close finish, I think the future of women's mountain biking is looking very good with Emily Parks and Holly Harris yet to come up into the elite category. It's the elites right now on screen. Beck Henderson out in front with just a little bit less than one lap of the 5.1 kilometre circuit to complete to get her another gold medal at the Australian Championships. Peter Mullins with a little bit of work to do. Mike, do you think she can do it?
Look, I'm not sure at this point. It's almost a minute that the gap's out at, and Beck is not fading. She's looking super strong through here. Look, as is Peter, but that's a big gap to shut down in 5 kilometres. I think unless there's a mechanical problem for Beck, I think Beck's got the green and gold on her shoulders.
It wouldn't be the first time, though. We've seen it before. Dan McConnell had mechanical issues at the World Championships last year, Beck's boyfriend and coach, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen for Beck Henderson. She certainly does deserve this gold medal.
And look, speaking of gold medals, we all saw Peter Mullins at the National Roads winning the gold medal almost from nowhere. No team, not a lot of support, and she was able to take it out. Today she was pretty keen to try and unite the mountain and road.
Well, she is. I mean, riding to a silver medal isn't a bad result for that. And there's Jenny King. She's bringing it up in third. She's one of the best coaches in Australia. She actually just won an award, the MTB Women's Coach of the Year.
It's got to be quite challenging, isn't it? Coaching athletes that you're competing against and giving them all the encouragement they deserve while actually forcing for your own results, as we see Beck Henderson just very easily negotiating the tricky parts of this course. Technically very good, and also such a good athlete as well. Peter Mullins with a little bit of speed coming down to the same area as well, but the gap is at around that 50-second mark, and it's not too many kilometres now until they come back into the finishing zone.
No, well, it's all pretty much flat and straight away from here with just a couple of small pinch climbs. So that gap, I think it's just going to stay. But you're right about Jenny. She's quite an amazing coach and an amazing racer. And what's really good to see is that before her race, she's often spending the time with the junior athletes that she coaches. And even the days before, when you'd imagine she'd want her legs up, she's out taking them through the course and walking them through what their race plan is.
And now we see fourth-place rider Jenny Fay. She's just taken out Australian citizenship. She's the reigning Irish marathon champion, and we look forward to when she can represent Australia.
And doing very well in this short format of cross-country compared to what she's used to. But here's Beck Henderson. She's doing what she's used to. She's coming into the finishing area way out in front.
And this is exactly what we saw in Toowoomba. She's built a lead, and then she's capitalised. She has said so many times she's proud to wear the green and gold, and Beck Henderson has the finish straight all to herself to ride to the elite women's cross-country national title.
And that's 2 in a row for Beck, so backing up her first elite title last year, this is the second one. Great effort by Beck.
Great effort by Beck Henderson, absolutely, Mike. Certainly a good performance by her, and a great ride also by Peter Mullins. Just looking to be under that minute behind for the silver medal, but she's the Australian road champion. And there's a lot of discussion about whether she should stick for the road events going towards the Rio Olympics or stick with the mountain bikes. And she's chosen to stay on the dirt road to Rio. She's not quite there yet. Silver medal here at the Australian Championships. At the moment, Beck Henderson has that spot for the Rio Olympic Games, but Peter Mullins is really vying for either Beck's spot or perhaps if they can do well enough in the World Cups this year in Europe, they might be able to earn a second position for Australia.
And look, Peter's said she's got quite a heavy schedule of UCI mountain bike races lined up just to go for real points grab. You know, she's going to get that experience. But here's Jenny King coming into a bronze medal position.
And Jenny King, always strong, always consistent, and a great ride today. And we've got Beck Henderson with Scott McGrory.
Beck, another national title for you. What does this one mean?
Yeah, this one's really special. Obviously, coming in as defending champion and, Oceania champion, it was really important for me to have a good race. And, it's really special to win because I came in with everything to lose and I was able to put it together, so really happy.
Obviously, it gives you a lot of confidence going into the World Cup season now.
Yeah, Dan thinks I'm in the best form I've ever been in. I'm not sure. I thought I was in good form at Com Games, but yeah, I'm really excited for the World Cup season. It's been a good pre-season, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Today I said to myself, I just need to keep fighting. Anything can happen. It's the Australian Championships. It means the world to me to wear the road jersey, and I would have loved to have taken the mountain bike jersey. So I wasn't going to give up, and I figure it's sort of great training for the World Cups, and I look forward to the rest of the season.
The 2015 Subaru National Championships Elite Women's Podium.
What a great performance it was by Beck Henderson, taking out the Australian Mountain Bike Championships ahead of Peter Mullins and Jenny King in the bronze medal position. In the under-23s, it was a sprint finish down to the end, and the gold medal went to Emily Parks in front of Holly Harris. And after the break, we're going to see the men duke it out for the Australian Championships. Welcome back to the Subaru Australian Mountain Bike Championships, and it was a great victory there by Beck Henderson in the elite women's cross-country event. Joined again by Peter Mullins. Peter, that was a tough race out there.
Yeah, it really was. I think that's probably the best race Beck and I've had for a while. The first lap we were together, and I thought at the time maybe we'd be together for 3 laps, but I made a bit of a mistake on the back half of the course, and she just took full advantage of it. And class act and classy bike rider, and I knew that I had my hands full trying to bring it back.
Well, what exactly was the mistake that happened?
Yeah, it's quite tight around the back of the course, and I just dabbed my foot on one of the corners, and that was really it.
That's all it takes.
That 3 or 4 seconds is absolutely all it takes.
Wow. Well, tough race, that's for sure. And then Jenny King coming out in the bronze medal position, so good result for her. She's a coach of some of the riders as well. Yeah, Jenny's got her hands pretty full, and she's only racing domestically this year, so it was a pretty big aim for her, and just been consistent over so many years, so really happy to see her take a bronze. And for you, for the rest of 2015, you're going to be on the road, or are you going to stay on the dirt?
Yeah, so we've got the Olympic Games obviously coming up in a year and a half, so mountain biking is my full focus. I have signed a contract with Wiggle Honda, professional women's road team this year, so I'll probably line up for Women's Tour of Britain and maybe the Tour de France and Vuelta women's races and sort of slot those into the program because they are so prestigious. But the World Cups and the World Championships is where I'm at.
Well, Dan's up next, the hot favourite for the elite men's cross-country event. Is anyone going to be able to challenge him?
I can't imagine. Nino Schurter and Julian Absalon, obviously European, so
they're not here. That's for sure.
He is so amazing. I don't know if Australia can really comprehend how good the guy is, and I think he'll have a tight battle with a couple of guys and then just hit him in the last couple of laps. But I think the race for the podium will be really interesting.
Well, Dan did win a World Cup 2 seasons ago, the first Australian to do so since last century in Cadel Evans, and finished last season's World Cup in 3rd overall. So he really is in hot form.
Yeah, and I mean, he really has been unbeatable for a long time. But like I said, I think the podium is going to be where the race is at. Paul Vandenberg's coming back to form. Dan coaches Brendan Trecky Johnson, and he was disappointed with his result at Oceania, so I think he's hoping for a good result today.
Well, we caught up with some of the favourites before the start. Let's hear for them. Okay, Cam, big day, Australian Mountain Bike Championships. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm looking forward to getting out there. It's my first year in Elite, having the win last year in 23s is a big confidence boost, and I'll see how long I can hang on for today.
Okay, Paul, Australian Mountain Bike Championships. Firstly, how's your form? How do you think you're going to go, and what about the opposition?
Well, my body's been giving me mixed messages. It could be really good, or I could be terrible. So, yeah, it's a bit of a lottery at the moment, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, we will see how it goes for Paul Vandenberg, but the man on screen, number 1, Dan McConnell is the hot favourite. Not the first into the corner, though, Paul van der Ploeg. You'd expect that from the big, powerful, giant rider to be the first into the first turn.
That's right, he's leading it out. This is just the start loop before they go into the next lap, but you've got local Sebastian Jane up there too, Cam Ivory, and Dan's not sitting back.
No, look, I mean, we all know Dan builds power throughout the race. He's a bit of a diesel, and he's just staying out of the mess off the line.
Well, how important is it as we see Brendan Johnston here, the first rider back into the finishing area? They'll now go across the start line. See these great shots of the park. This is actually the landing zone for the paragliders here in Bright. And they've just let those guys go across the other side of the road to the second landing strip. Paul van der Ploeg on the left-hand side there, trying to get into the first position. Now they're about to go into the single track and head off into the 5-kilometre lap. 6 times they're going to be doing the laps today. How important is it to get into that single track first?
Look, I mean, I think it's somewhat important, but they're out there for a long time. They've got 30-plus Ks of MTB in front of them. As we see the under-23s off the line, and Scott Bowden has been the absolute hot favourite this season, and he's on the inside there leading them in.
102 there, Scott Bowden. So taking charge of the under-23s, straight into the lead position. Other riders to watch here, Chris Hamilton. He's from Bendigo, part of my training bunch over there as well. So we'll see how he can fare against Scott Bowden, who's really mixed it up against the elites in the National Series this year.
Well, he's walked away with the National Series title from the under-23s, just as we saw Cam Ivory do last year. Scott has just ridden really impressively this season, Mike.
He certainly has. He's going to easily bridge the gap when he goes to elites in a couple of years' time, and he'll be up with these guys, as we've already seen.
Well, these guys are led by Dan McConnell. Brendan Johnston, his training partner from Canberra, in second position. Then it was Paul van der Ploeg, and Cameron Ivory in the blue colours was in fourth position. Back to the under-23s here. They started 5 minutes behind the elite riders, but I would expect someone as fast as Scott Bowden to ride through some of those tail-end elite riders.
Oh, look, no question at all, and we can see him powering through there. He knows he's on pace with the elite riders, and that's really got to mess with the minds of some of the other under-23s in the field.
Yeah, for sure. So he's got Ben Bradley with him there and Sebastian Jane too. So they might form a good little breakaway.
Well, I mentioned Chris Hamilton as one of the other favourites in the under-23s. Wasn't in the mix there with those 3 leaders. But you see Dan McConnell now coming back into the finishing area. This is to complete the first of 6 big laps, 5.1 kilometres. It's 101 metres difference in altitude per lap. 2 decent climbs out on the course, and certainly a lot of technical nature glued together. 2 riders out in front.
Look, how comfortable do they look? They've already built up a gap from the field, and yet they're sitting there and just ticking it away.
Well, I think a big difference is those two, they're training partners. They're good friends. They're going to be working together. Cam and Paul behind, they're racing for third place. They're not going to be trying to bridge that gap in a cohesive unit.
Well, this is the first time we see Cameron Ivory come up into the elite competition. He was the under-23 Australian champion last year. Do you think he's going to have the endurance to really fight against Paul van der Ploeg for that, well, at the moment, looks like a bronze medal position?
Well, Cam's a very gifted rider. He's joined a road team this year, and he's already had some good results there. He's a pure mountain biker, though. Really, I don't think his road results would match his mountain bike ones. But I think his endurance should be okay.
Well, he's opened up a lead there over Paul van der Ploeg in fourth position. Big, powerful rider for the Giant team. 2,400 watts he's able to produce, which is more than some of our elite track sprinters that we'll see at the Olympic Games next year. This is Scott Bowden coming in to finish the first of his 5 laps in the under-23 competition.
Scott's filthy.
Yeah, look, he's wearing dirt up the front, almost indicative of a crash, perhaps Superman style, over the bars and face and chest first.
Well, filthy in both ways, Mike. Filthy as in dirty, and filthy as in absolutely flying and going well.
Yeah, look at this gap. It's massive. So it'll be interesting to see a time check on this, but he has opened up a huge gap on the under-23 field.
And to be able to open up a gap like that with a crash on the lap as well.
Well, here's the chase group. So it's Chris Hamilton leading local Sebastian Jane. Looks like Ben Bradley there too, and just behind that's Taz Nankovich.
Chris Hamilton now getting up in front.
And a sneaky move by Seb Jane. A bit of a locals line around there just to sneak into second place, but I don't think that's going to be a lasting move with this group.
Well, you say sneaky move, but a move's a move. You just got to get in front. And that's what the nature of this course. There's so much single track that you really have to just take the chance when you can. Coming in to complete the second of the 6 big laps now. And still 2 riders, 2 training partners. So you do wonder if Dan McConnell is just riding a nice solid tempo and helping Brendan right along with him for a while, taking each opportunity. And this is another challenge of the circuit, is also with so much of a technical nature to it that you have to take your chances to make sure you drink and eat if you're going to have an energy gel out on the course as well.
There's few opportunities to take your hands off the bars out there, so this start and finish straight is being used a lot for feeding.
We see Cam Ivory and Paulie Vanderploeg on the chase. Look, I mean, certainly in terms of Dan's traditional race pattern, it's normally about the midpoint or just after that he makes the move. He's normally happy and comfortable just sitting in there with whoever in second place and then trying to make that move lap 3 or 4 of 6.
And look, Brendan Johnston's one of the few people who's been able to stay with Dan this long in a race in the domestic scene.
Well, let's see if he can stay with him right to the very end. But Dan McConnell certainly has led the way in Australian mountain biking. Let's hear a little bit more about him. Dan McConnell, right now at the Australian Championships, how's your form?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I got a good hit out a couple of weeks ago at the Oceania Champs with some pretty good competition. The guys that actually won and got second at the Com Games in front of me. So, you know, I think I'm in pretty good shape. The course is a little bit different, well, quite a lot different to last year. There's not as much climbing, and I think it's going to be a bit harder to get away. But, you know, I've done some pretty good training leading into this race, so I'm sort of looking forward to getting this race done.
The 2015 Oceania Elite Champion, the 6th time, Dan McConnell.
Did it give you an extra smile on your face when you crossed the line at Oceanias knowing you beat those guys from Com Games?
Yeah, there was a little bit more satisfaction in it. You know, obviously Com Games was a separate race, but, you know, it was a whole year ago, really. So, you know, I'm just looking forward to, you know, this season coming, and, you know, it was good to start the year off with a couple of wins.
Dan McConnell.